Hello and welcome to the Law Patrol, proudly presented by Glazed Legal. On this channel, we take a look at all things legal and lawful as they happen in Australia and around the world. We review concepts, cases, and just generally shoot the breeze. Whilst we don't give advice, we can answer some questions and hopefully at least point you in the right direction. As we cover everything legal and don't shy away from the hard topics, we may occasionally cover themes or discussions that some may find disturbing or distasteful. So if necessary, make yourself a cup of concrete, put on your big kid pants and pull up a chair. If you have any questions or comments about anything we discuss, please don't hesitate to reach out by email at info@glazedlegal.com.au. Follow us on Facebook and remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Now, let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Law Patrol. TFIF, thank fuck it's Friday. It's currently 5 p.m. here in Australia, so I decided that I'd jump on for maybe half hour to an hour and just have a look at some of the things that have been making the rounds. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, that the issues with Elaine Bredehoft making her rounds in the shall we say media circus have had plenty of the people on the LawTube community. It's sort of varied. Some people have had absolute rants about it. Some people have been quite disappointed. I thought I'd have a look at some of the issues myself, because on top of the Today interview that she gave, as well as the CNN and other interviews with CBS, there's also been some coverage here in Australia. So I was just curious to react to that in real time. But let's just have a look, see why everyone's got a... Oh, that's a good question about Elaine. Fair enough. Where are we? Let's start with, I believe this is NBC Fairfax. Where are we? So let's have a look.
And we are joined now by Amber Heard's attorney, Elaine Charlson Bredehoft. Good morning to you. It's good to see you. First question, how is Amber doing? We saw her hearing that verdict. It took a long time to read. It was a sweeping verdict for Johnny Depp. How did she handle it?
You know, one of the first things she said is, I am so sorry to all those women out there. This is a setback for all women in and outside the courtroom. And
okay, firstly, I agree with Rob. There is absolutely no way that that was the first thing that came out of Amber Heard's mouth. If she was not kicking and screaming when she walked into that room, I will be stunned. But more to the point, I'm just not sure that Amber's quite that eloquent when it comes to her being in an emotional state either.
she feels it, and she feels the burden of that.
Well, knowing the case and knowing the law, as you certainly do, it favors defendants like Amber Heard. Are you stunned that the jury essentially rejected her story?
Well, you know, really what happened here is it's a tale of two trials. Johnny Depp brought a suit in the UK for the same case, and the burden of proof was easier for him there. The Sun had to actually prove that it was true, and the court found there, and we weren't allowed to tell the jury this, but the court found that Mr. Depp had committed at least 12 acts of domestic violence.
Okay. Someone needs to tell Elaine that the UK and the US are two sovereign nations. What happens in one court jurisdiction has absolutely no impact on another, in particular with who wants to bring a case. I was going through some of those chats. Where do we go? Elaine is a nut job. Lawyer and client are like a Bunnings sausage lol. Yeah, look, I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, that's it was something that Joe and Rob were saying this morning. I wholeheartedly agree that Rottenborn has been getting more of a pass, and for me, he gets more of a pass because I think he was basically brought into. Well, I mean, he was brought into the jurisdiction because he's a trial litigator. I mean, Elaine has been with Amber for quite some time. I mean, looking back, I think I worked out that she was around in the. She was definitely around for the UK trial. There's photos of her standing on the courthouse off to the side and that sort of thing. So she's had some time for Amber to be basically weaseling her way into her mindset or something, because the way that this woman jumps rope with certain ethical obligations and that sort of thing, the way that she did her closing arguments was just astounding. But it's one of those things where you've got to wonder exactly what has gone wrong for a lawyer or attorney to actually reach this point. If this is wrong for Adam Wakeman, it's wrong for Elaine. Yeah, now look, there is two things there. One, Elaine will still be covered by the litigation privilege. So because the court matter is still ongoing, what she says in relation to the matter is still technically covered by the court privilege. I don't personally agree with that, but it's just the way things are sort of set up. In terms of whether or not it was wrong, yes, look, I'm inclined to agree, and I think that they're probably using that as a launching pad for, well, if I was able to get one of my counterclaims up, I can send Elaine out to say whatever she wants, basically. Is Amber paying for these appearances? I would say that there's probably some negotiation as to whether or not she will be on the clock per se for these things. I think that it'll be very much a case of it may well be that Elaine's doing the rounds to boost her own profile, but at the same time, she'll be doing it to make sure that frankly, Amber might be making her do it just out of pure spite, saying, you didn't do a good enough job. I want you out there spruiking my name. Libby, I'm surprised she wasn't arrested for trashing a courtroom. Yeah, look, honestly, so am I. And but I think, to be fair, if she'd done that, it really would have lent more credence to whether or not Johnny was the one doing all the damage as well. So she was probably going to be smart enough not to do that. But then again, we don't know what happens behind closed doors. I haven't watched Elaine, but wouldn't someone usually hide when they lost so bad? I think that basically what Elaine seems to be doing is going on the attack very quickly. So because they've made it so obvious that they're going to be appealing and all this sort of rot, it's pretty much she's getting out there to try and garner as much support so that they can, I won't say pollute any further future juries, but I mean, some of the things that she says in these interviews, it's quite obvious that that's what they're going for. Or at least that's my opinion anyway. Elaine drives me nuts, and I have to turn the channel when she's on. I can't listen to her. The lie she spews are vile. I wholeheartedly agree with that. This is a PR campaign to grab attention to the people that didn't watch the trial. Yes, absolutely. Elaine wants to be the next UCLA ambassador with the amount of lies she spins in her interviews. Look, you could well be right. We'll have to see where she goes. Rob was furious earlier. I haven't seen him so mad. No, look, that's true. I mean, Rob's one of those kind of guys that, he's sort of mild-mannered. You sort of expect him to be, as bad as it sounds, if you were to put them in, say, DC superhero equivalents, Rob's your mild-mannered sort of either Superman, maybe Flash. Let's face it, Joe's more dark and broody, so there's your Batman, who loses his temper. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Seeing Rob like that was very out of character, but I can wholeheartedly understand why he was like that. But anyway.
Including sexual violence against Amber. So what did Depp's team learn from this? Demonize Amber and suppress the evidence.
There was nothing suppressed. Let's be absolutely clear. There was evidence that was not admitted because there was absolutely no reason for it to, and including the details from the UK case is entirely way too prejudicial.
We had an enormous amount of evidence that was suppressed in this case that was in the UK case. In the UK case, when it came in, Amber won, Mr. Depp lost.
But here's the thing. You were able to get some evidence that you say demonstrated abuse. You certainly had her testimony. There were pictures, documents, all kinds of evidence. But in point of fact, the jury rejected it. You argued in your closing arguments that if they found even one instance of abuse, and it did not even have to be physical abuse, that they would have to find for Amber Heard, and they didn't.
And the other part to bear in mind here is nothing changed. The op-ed didn't even mention Mr. Depp by name. And so what basically they did here is demonize her. And they were able to suppress the medical records, which.
What? What? Suppressed medical records. Were there any instances where it was brought up at all that medical records were involved? Like, she's legitimately going out there and spewing inaccurate information. I mean, if Amber had had any medical information whatsoever to support her claims, there is no way that would have been suppressed. It would have been admitted at trial. You can't. There's legitimately no real way that it could have been suppressed. I'm legitimately gobsmacked.
Were very, very significant because they showed a pattern going all the way back to 2012 of Amber reporting this to her therapist, for example. We had significant amount of texts, including from Mr. Depp's assistants, saying, when I told him he kicked you, he cried. He is so sorry. That didn't come in.
Is there any other way to...
Right, okay, so he's... what have we got in the chat? So I hope when she appeals, Johnny Cross appeals and takes her judgment, because if anyone has a reason to appeal, it'll be Johnny if she pulls that crap. Yeah. I mean, Elaine keeps going on about how there's excellent grounds for appeal. I'm really starting to not quite understand. I don't know whether or not Elaine's necessarily all there at this point, or at least in her understanding of the law, because it's literally... everything that was found was a finding of fact by the jury. So unless she's specifically saying that Judge Escarate screwed up the trial somehow and there's some sort of fact of law that needs to be appealed, I still can't wrap my head around that. Elaine is so full of it, like a Christmas goose, as Johnny would say. Yep. Let her produce the medical records now. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that as well. If any sort of medical records that actually support her claims that weren't, just self-reporting and bolstering of her own case, then yeah, let her make them public, or not necessarily public, but you can redact them or whatever. Talking about the therapist notes, hearsay to the therapist, the only medical records she has. Yeah. She only saw an ENT regards to powder sniffing, and that's what causes the blood noses. They got Gina Judas kicked out, and with that, her husband was also disqualified from testifying. That's why his text messages couldn't be entered. Yeah, look, and I really wasn't impressed with the way that they got Gina kicked out as well. I mean, yes, Gina said that she herself had actually gone and watched some brief clips on TikTok and that sort of thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it the fact that one of Amber's, entourage had a misrepresented a Instagram post or something, and that it had actually been from years previously? So, I mean, yes, she was silly enough that she admitted it on the stand that she'd been viewing stuff, but, medical records of Amber lying to doctors. Yeah, just what she told the therapist. Yeah.
To interpret this verdict, though, that this jury, for whatever reason, and I hear you on some of the evidence that they didn't hear, listening to Amber Heard, did not believe a single word.
And that's because she was demonized here. A number of things were allowed in this court that should not have been allowed. And it caused the jury to be confused. We weren't allowed to tell them about the UK judgment. So the damages is completely skewed. There are no damages. It stopped at November 2, 2020, which is when the judgment came down in the UK.
Let me ask you about social media in this case.
No, Elaine, that's not how that works. Let's just be very clear. The UK case bringing down its decision has absolutely no impact on what sort of damages that Johnny should be able to claim from Amber. It would have an impact if he was trying to claim damages from the son. Wow, she's really doing some real gymnastics there.
Unlike any celebrity case, certainly I've ever covered or ever seen, social media was a part of this. And it was incredibly lopsided and vitriolic against Amber Heard. Do you think that had an effect on the case?
Absolutely.
You think jurors were aware of it? They weren't supposed to be. They're admonished every single day. Don't look at it. Do you think they did see it?
How can you not?
Yes, how can you not? And look, I'm inclined to agree that there was more than likely people out there that went and actually looked at social media and that sort of thing. But again, Rob and Joe had a good point this morning. Amber literally turned to the jury and said, "Go and look me up." So I don't know that you can be bitching and moaning about social media being involved in this now. So anyway,
they went home every night. They have families. The families are on social media. We had a 10-day break in the middle because of the judicial conference. There's no way they couldn't have been influenced by it. And it was horrible. It really, really was lopsided. And I appreciate your saying that. It's like the Roman Colosseum, how they viewed this whole case. I was against cameras in the courtroom, and I went on record with that and had argued against it because of the sensitive nature of this. But it made it a zoo.
Does your client want to appeal?
Oh, absolutely. And she has some excellent grounds for it. We even had tried to get the UK judgment in to dismiss his case because he already had his shot.
No, just no. That's not how that works. For starters, again, completely different jurisdictions. That case was against another party. I cannot fathom in what universe she is imagining that it would be a good idea to try and bring that in. Not to mention the fact that the UK is already really pissed off about how that's happened because of all the information that's come out now, and that she may be facing perjury. It's just mind-boggling. Excellent grounds. Yeah, that's my reaction to it. Yeah, excellent grounds. Yes, there's the excellent grounds is that Amber rides a unicorn and needs to, keep it well fed or whatever. And Johnny, as an evil person, made it run away or some sort of other shit that Elaine's going to pull out of her ass. I don't really know. That's just, yeah. False allegations, Elaine, no proof again from you. Yeah, and that's pretty much been the case to a T. They keep making allegations, and there has been nothing to base it off. Elaine is a massive see you next Tuesday. Yep. It's almost slanderous. Yeah, and look, to be perfectly honest, as I was saying, if it wasn't for the fact that she's still covered by litigation privilege, I would very much be expecting that this would result in their own defamation issues. So whenever Elaine talks, I get secondhand embarrassment from the things she says and how ridiculous she sounds.
And that's one of the issues, but also a number of the evidentiary issues. There was so much evidence that did not come in.
Is she able to pay a $10.4 million judgment?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Finally, in closing arguments, Amber's team argued that this would send a message, that it would send a message that no matter what you do as an abuse victim, you always have to do more. You need to be perfect in order for people to believe you if she did not get a favorable verdict. What message do you think this sends?
It's a horrible message. It's, as I said, a setback. It's a significant setback because that's exactly what it means. Unless you pull out your phone and you video your spouse or your significant other beating you, effectively, you won't be believed.
Elaine Charlson, Bredehoft, thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
God. What's his name? Alroka? Anyway, that's just Really disturbing. Where are we? So, no, look, what I wanted to show you as well was... So this is going to be from Sky News Australia. So this is basically our... I won't say that it's our CBS or anything. I don't want to give them that much credit. But...
Actor Amber Heard will likely appeal the verdict of a defamation trial which has ordered her to pay damages to former husband Johnny Depp. Her lawyer says there were several procedural errors in the trial which she says caused the jury to be confused. She claims the jury would have been affected by social media coverage leading to an unfair trial.
They went home every night. They have families. The families are on social media. We had a 10-day break in the middle because of the judicial conference. There's no way they couldn't have been influenced by it. And it was horrible. It really, really was lopsided.
Ms. Heard's attorney confirms Amber Heard won't be able to pay that $15 million judgment.
Two things to take out of that. One, no one in Australia can actually keep track. I mean, if they have actually been in the news or anything, because you'll note he said $15 million, so they're not even actually keeping track of that. I did actually notice that yesterday when they were putting it out through the news as well, that they were still advertising that he was going to get the full 15 million, which, you know, if you had any sort of knowledge of the case, you'd know that wasn't the case. Where are we? Didn't Depp give her a lot of money before? I'm not 100% sure. Oh, okay. What if any of money can we pay Elaine just to F off? Look, that's actually a really good question. I have no idea what her actual retainer is, but from the sounds of it, if Amber has actually wasted a good 6 or 7 million on her legal defense, which she may well have, my understanding is that Johnny's may have been in the area of about 10 million. Don't quote me on that. That's, you know, secondhand information. So that's some definite second or third degree hearsay. But yeah, I mean, Elaine's been litigating cases for 38 years. That puts her at, hang on, let me actually, where are we? 2022 minus 38. But she's been practicing at the very least since 1984. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions from her age or anything like that. I would never presume to do that. I do think she's probably very set in her ways, though, and I think that's part of the whole reason why people keep going on about how she managed to settle cases and that sort of thing before it gets to trial. Look, that's all well and good, but at the same time, if you're not careful, your skills get rusty, and I think we saw that throughout this trial. We saw that she wasn't keeping track of time. We saw that she wasn't able to be eloquent in what she said or reach with the jury. And, you know, fingers crossed down the track, some of the partners at her firm might decide that it's important that she retire or something along those lines. Not that I'm saying that she has to. I'm just saying that, you know, it's not necessarily the best look for the firm, shall we say. Particularly because she seems to have been very focused and involved in a lot of Amber's matters. Going back, I mean, I've been trying to search back exactly how far I can actually work out whether or not Elaine was acting for Amber. The earliest that I can find her is with the UK case. But it may well be that she was representing Amber for a lot longer than that. So, setback came from you and your client. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's one of those situations where someone's tried to co-opt something for themselves, and it's just damaged a significant subset of society. And, you know, results be damned, she did not care about any of that. Just rub some Amica cream on it, Elaine. It will be okay. Yeah, well, I'd say her ego probably needs some Amica cream right about now. goodness, this woman needs some help writing the script. She said the same thing on CBS too. Yeah, and look, I think she's probably been. I think she's probably got the single script, and she's just repeating it and parroting it on the different channels. It's one of those things where you probably don't want to stuff up. Where am I? Okay. It looks slightly better. For anyone that's interested, I did actually go out and get a proper mic, so I'm still trying to sort out the headphones. So, apparently, Elaine will be on Court TV tomorrow. Yes, I'm actually looking forward to that. If I can be around to live stream and react to that, I certainly will. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other people that will be doing it on their channels. But if I can hop on and say a few words, we'll see what happens. She's the only one that was confused. No, look, I don't think that Elaine was the only person in that room that was confused. You've got to account for Amber. You've got to account for... oh, well, I mean, I suppose technically Io wasn't in the room, but anyway. With the same script she spouted on the... Just watch. Yeah, guarantee that's exactly what it's going to be like. Maybe nobody else wanted the case. No, look, I genuinely think that Elaine was involved in this case because she had been acting for Amber for so long. I think that Amber knew that she was someone that she could push around, and that, you know, maybe she was someone that she could coerce to do certain things in a certain way. I'm sort of tiptoeing around ethical guidelines myself now, but anyway. In the meantime, let's have a look at the legal headlines. Okay, don't know what we need to know about that. Okay. Okay, so this one's fairly important, particularly for the people in New South Wales. So there's new sexual consent laws that came into effect from the 1st of June. Oh, God, my voice is really cracking today. The new affirmative consent laws take effect today in New South Wales as part of the historic legislative reform for the state. The government has launched a two-pronged attack to consent reform, including law changes and education campaigns, particularly for 16 to 24-year-olds who are considered in the high-risk group of victims and perpetrators of SA. But what do they mean? Consent is when someone will freely and voluntarily agree to engage in activities, including kissing, touching. I didn't actually think that would cause me to pause there. I really just need a cup of concrete myself, apparently. Including kissing, touching, oral sex, and penetrative sex, according to the new legislation. Feeling freely and voluntarily means you feel comfortable saying yes to participating. There are, however, some circumstances where you cannot consent, including when you're heavily affected by drugs. Better get it in writing. There are, however, some where you are heavily affected by drugs or alcohol. So if you're heavily intoxicated, you can't consent. You also can't consent if you're unconscious, asleep, or if you're being manipulated or threatened. So under the new legislation, consent is a free and voluntary agreement that should not be presumed, and consent involves ongoing and mutual communication. Basically, it means that when you engage in sexual activity, whether that be various forms of sex, consent is given through words and actions. That still, to me, seems a little vague, in particular with, giving consent by actions. Yes, I suppose you can sit there and give a thumbs up halfway through, but anyway. The laws have been strengthened so that if you consent to one act, it doesn't mean you've consented to other acts. Prosecutions for offences are also pegged to be fairer and more effective. Work has also been done to improve the victim experience in the justice system, and jurors have been given new directions to better understand the complexities of sexual offending. There will be 5 new directions available to judges to dispel great myths. Speakman has said, for example, a victim who isn't showing any physical signs of harm doesn't mean that they haven't been raped. The fact that there hasn't been any complaint straight away doesn't mean that there hasn't been any SA. What if both parties are under the influence of drugs and alcohol? Then arguably neither party can consent. And if one party wanted to bring charges against another, theoretically, the other one could also do so. How is it fair to say a male should have known better, but the woman was under the influence? Seems logical. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm very much equal about equality when it comes to that sort of thing. I think that men and women both need to take responsibility for the actions that they take. All right, what else we got in the news? See, I was going to do a whole thing today about the High Court case in Mabo, because I'm pretty sure it's like 30 years since that was. Yep, here we are. Consult your attorney for a contract. Yeah, as bad as it sounds, relationship agreements like the one in the Big Bang Theory, not necessarily a bad idea. It's kind of scary that life's gotten to that point, but anyway. Sorry, just had to clear up my nose a little bit. Pulling an Amber Heard. Just where are we? Add to stream. There we go. Today marks the 30th anniversary of Mabo D, and here is what it is and why it matters. Mabo Day commemorates Torres Strait Islander Eddie Koiki Mabo and his role in overturning the Terra Nullius Declaration, which claimed that Australia once belonged to no one. Yeah, true. So for anyone that has no idea, basically when European settlers came to Australia, they made a declaration of Terra Nullius, which basically said, irrespective of whoever's here, this land belongs to no one. We're setting up our own land and title system. So, irrespective of whether or not Joe Blow reckons that they own that area down by the creek, we're going to start issuing out land ownership, and it's going to be a very specific way. So Eddie Mabo basically took it all the way to the High Court of Australia to establish native title that belongs to Indigenous Australians. Friday, the 3rd of June 2020, marks 30 years since the landmark decision by the High Court of Australia to overturn the doctrine of Terra Nullius, land belonging to no one, which was declared at the time of the European colonisation. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who occupied the land spoke their own language and had their own laws and customs long before the British arrived in 1788. And Terra Nullius was an attempt by colonisers to give legitimacy to their disposition of the First Nations people. At the heart of the High Court's decision was the First Nations land rights activist and Murray Island man Eddie Koiki Mabo, who passed away in 1992, the first named plaintiff in the case, who is regarded as the father of native title. Mabo Day occurs each year at the end of National Reconciliation Week and is considered to be the day of reflection. Following the High Court ruling, Australia's Federal Parliament passed the Native Title Act, which established a legal framework for native title claims throughout Australia by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. So, who was Eddie Mabo? How many people lived there at that time? That's actually a very good question. I don't know the specifics on that. Let me just double check, see if I can find something. And obviously records from that time are going to be pretty sketchy. but there's estimated that, according to National Geographic, around the time that Australia began being settled in 1788, there was roughly 750,000 to 1.25 million Aboriginal Australians in the area. So they basically got up, shifted, and whatever. So not a great scenario, obviously, and I'm not trying to offend in any way. It can be a very touchy subject here in Australia. So, if I die, my kids will not be able to speak my language if I don't teach them at this stage. Mr. Mabo spoke these words as a guest lecturer to students at Townsville College of Advanced Education, later incorporated into James Cook University in Queensland in 1982. We must be able to retain our identity and culture, he went on to say. According to a biography from the Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, his first language was Merriam, and he grew up immersed in Merriam culture. Okay. He quickly involved himself in politics, campaigning, and becoming a prominent leader amongst the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Queensland. Founded the Aboriginal Legal Service, which he founded and he founded a black school in Townsville. Okay, good. So they've got video. Have you seen the Eddie Mabo? No, look, I'm ashamed to say I've never actually seen it, but might actually see if we can. Yeah, might learn something.
Hello and welcome to Living Black. I'm Carla Grant, coming to you from Townsville, where celebrations are being held in honour of land rights activist Eddie Mabo. In today's show, we explore Eddie Mabo's legacy, 20 years after his landmark court case to secure native title.
This land came to me through my grandmother and her father.
Chroming, a new wave of substance abuse hits Townsville.
We had a young person that came in with the same amount of damage as someone who had drug and alcohol abuse for over 40 years. And he was an 11-year-old boy.
And Torres Strait Island performer Christine Arnoux performs for us in studio.
Yeah, okay, apologies for that. I did not think that was going to be what that was. Yeah, so look, long and the short of it is it's been 30 years. It was a massive High Court case, and I will be doing a proper review on that because Mabo and the Wick case, very, very influential and very important for the way that the Australian title system and the native title system has been set up. But I just, given that it actually is Mabo Day today, I just wanted to raise that and let everyone know. Where are we? So, I think I covered all the videos that I was going to with Elaine. We have Mary courts. Yeah, look, we actually do also have Aboriginal courts here as well, which is basically elders holding court themselves, and we respect their decisions in relation to certain matters that are taken, and it's probably best that they're handled internally by that particular subset of the culture. So I genuinely think it's a brilliant idea, frankly. Law and crime. Attorney alleges Johnny Depp did the... No, that's law and crime. Last thing I want to do is have them on my behind. I'm just going to watch this particular bit again because I find it bloody hilarious.
Okay, you know this case is being televised, right?
I am aware that there are cameras.
And so this gets you your 15 minutes of fame, doesn't
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
it? I can ask that question.
Overruled.
So I stand to gain nothing from this. I'm actually putting myself kind of in a target of TMZ, a very litigious organization, and I'm not seeking any 15 minutes here. Though you're welcome to speculate. I could say the same thing by taking Amber Heard as a client for you.
A little argumentative, don't you think?
Oh, hardly. I find that to be purely logical.
Wait, what? James Earl Jones passed away. What?
For his camp.
I did not.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes. So how do you know what video was shown at this trial?
I was alerted by a friend that that TMZ was being kind of talked about in this trial, and so I had seen a clip of that.
So you watched some of this trial?
Correct.
Okay. When did you first reach out to counsel for Mr. Depp?
I believe that was 6 days ago, whatever that date would be. I'd have to do that.
All right. And then you received a subpoena, I think yesterday, in care of your attorney, Cindy Hickox, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Cindy Hickox represents Christy Dombrowski, Kate James, Robin Baum. and
Objection,
Debbie
Your
Lloyd.
Honor.
Were you aware
Calls
of
for
that?
speculation.
Overruled.
Were you aware of that?
No.
Now, if you don't have information that's helpful to this case, then you wouldn't be a witness, correct?
Objection. Calls for
can't.
speculation.
Sustained. Next question.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
Okay. Just to clarify, I've just did some digging. I can't find anything about James Earl Jones dying. Can you specify where you got the information from? Because there's nothing that I can find in any Google searches or anything. And, it wouldn't be the first time that there's been a hoax about his death. I mean, he was only just in the Obi-Wan Kenobi episode. Some loser on Twitter. Whew. Okay. That would have been an absolute disaster. What was this one? So I've just seen a tweet pop up from LB as well, related to Agnet Levy. People are posting that the court stenographer Judy from the trial was partying with JD. It's not true. First, Judy is not a court employee. She was hired by the Depp and Heard team. I almost just said Depp and Turd. That's how much it's ingrained in my head now. Truth wins. Judy was at the event for maybe 10 minutes. The courthouse closes at 4 and her gear was locked inside. Her lawyers Depp's lawyers collected it for her. She picked up her items. JD hugged her and she left. That's it. Nothing more to say. There. Interesting. Anyway, where are we? All right, guys, it's almost 5:45. I'm probably going to call it in about 5. So, is there anything particular anyone wants to talk about? Do you think Morgan Tremaine's testimony was one of the top 3 moments? Yeah, I do think that was one of the top 3. My other ones were, I enjoyed watching Dr. Curry eviscerate Dr. Hughes. It's always fun watching someone that's that pompous and pretentious get taken to task. Excuse me. Yeah, they did. And Johnny was always a perfect gentleman. He'd always go over and shake her hand and that sort of thing. In terms of my absolute top moment of the case, I think I'm going to have to look the gotcha moment with Heard at the end of her second cross, where she basically said, "That's why I wrote the op-ed to make Johnny look bad or whatever." But how can you go past the entertainment lawyer? just rattling off his CV. It was like he was just detailing my cinematic history of movies that I'd watched as a kid. It was amazing seeing someone that had been that involved in things. Oh my God. Kate Moss and Isaac. Yeah. So Heard's reaction when she realized that Kate Moss was appearing by a video link as opposed to a deposition, that was funny. Dr. Curry and Dr. Shaw. Yep. Isaac was about Dr. Spiegel. Oh my God. Yeah, look, there is someone somewhere that Spiegel reminded me of so badly. But for the life of me, I cannot remember. As soon as I work that out, I'm going to spread it all over Twitter, though. Naming all... Yes, hashtag Amber Turd. Oh my God. And that's officially in the court record now. That's never going away. That's going to be in all the transcripts. That's going to be in all the court records. Hashtag Amber Turd. Please donate for me. Just crystallized how her brain works. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Pledge/donate for me. Yes. I understand where you're coming from. The whole... She really couldn't wrap her head around this fallacy, and it's just... And she can thank a legal team for it. Yep. Back to the Future. Yeah, look, he did remind me of Christopher Lloyd, but there is someone else, and it's going to annoy the shit out of me for ages. But as soon as I remember, you guys will be the first to know. That umbrella guy. Yeah, that was pretty good too. Where are we? So... All right. Well, look, it's 5:45. I'm going to call it a night because it is Friday and I very much want to get home. Guys, keep an eye out. I will be at some point, hopefully over this weekend, doing my review of The Castle. For anyone that doesn't know, one of the quintessential Australian legal comedies. And I very much want to cover that because I adore it. And for people that may not have seen it, it's absolutely hilarious. You know, I didn't actually realize this. They changed various bits for international audiences. So here in Australia, there's a particular scene where they go, "Oh, what's this, love?" And the wife goes, "Rissoles." They changed that to meatloaf in America. I was shocked. But anyway, look, I'll leave that for when I actually get in depth to it. But yeah, look, thank you very much for being here. And yeah, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. And I'll see you at some point on this weekend. Thanks very much. Cheers.